My last challenge was a disaster. I underperformed and my output was dreadful. This is when the toxicity started. I was abused by a couple of players, purposely gripping me into mechanics and killing me. Some players use their spells for good, others for bad. And it's because of that experience I feel like I have no choice. So now it's my turn. But which spec will I be?
Moving on to Holy Priest, not so great of a success story, but I do have to say that this is the worst healer at the moment.
Next, Holy Priest. I'm gonna put Holy Priest in the C tier.
And bringing at the rear, we've got Holy Priest, and this one feels pretty bad as well.
That's right, this season I'll be healing on the worst healer for Mythic Plus, the Holy Priest. Admittedly, probably the easiest spec between Holy and Disc, but as it's the lowest of the low, I felt like it was the perfect choice and would ultimately be more challenging. So, this season, I'll be taking the Holy Priest all the way from 0 to Keystone Master. I've chosen Keystone Master purely because of the state of Mythic Plus this season. KSM is basically the new KSH from how the dungeons and the difficulty feel, though that could obviously change. And if it does, I'd be more than happy to adjust the series. But for now, KSM is the goal. To those that don't know who I am or about my healing background, I don't heal very often. I get super anxious, I'm not very good at it, and if you want proof of this, you can go back and watch the Mistweaver Monk challenge I did for Dragonflight Season 2. I promise it won't disappoint. Like every challenge, this one comes with a bunch of rules, including some additional rules due to the new warband feature. So, as always, this character will be treated as if it's my only character. I can't use anything from the warband, nor can I send anything through the warband. So I have to earn the gold myself if I'm to purchase everything I need. And I'm looking to grab everything I can for this one, because it won't be easy. I can't play with friends, guildies, or community members. This will be 100% solo. This meant that I had to leave my guild and all communities, because I need to stay hidden, which is more challenging than you might think. We'll talk about this one later. This character will be hidden from my Raider IO, and the page will remain hidden until the challenge is over. That way I can't piggyback off of my main score to get me into keys, which may be rather challenging due to being the worst healer according to the meta. But to be perfectly honest, unless you're playing a Resto Shaman these days, you're probably having a hard time getting into groups anyway. And that's pretty much it. I just gotta pug my way from 0 Mythic Plus score to 2000. How hard can it be? Well, boys and girls, strap in, because we're about to find out. Now, the main goal might be to reach 2k score, but I also have some personal goals. I'm absolutely sick of not having a healer, and I'm sick of being bad at healing in general. I'm also a little frustrated at myself for not having a healer available when needed for Community Mythic Plus and raids. So I'm looking to change that, and I think the Holy Priest could be the perfect fit. But most of all, I want to become the bestest Holy Priest on Argent Dawn. That's right, Tally, step aside. There's a new Holy... Wait, what? He plays Disc? Oh, god damn it, never mind. Alright, let's not get ahead of ourselves. We have a lot to learn, and we need to start at the beginning. So, the goal of today's episode is to learn the basics of Holy Priest, finish as many weeklies as possible, and get my first taste for Mythic Plus. But first, there's a lot we need to do before we get started. So here we are, my Holy Priest, Ms. Lima Gomez. Yeah, don't ask. A whopping 532 item level, and obviously 0 Mythic Plus score. I'll very likely be doing a lot of open world content to begin with, and grabbing as much gear as I can before jumping into Mythic Plus. But because of how fast the gearing is in the early stages, I imagine I won't be doing this for very long. I won't be playing this character 7 days a week. I'll only be able to dedicate a few hours, 1 or 2 days each week, so it may take some time before we reach KSM. But I guess we'll see. Originally, I was going to take tailoring and enchanting, but I felt the gold making would be slower and less effective, so I chose the easier route with mining and herbalism. The only character I've actually taken gathering on this season. This should be interesting. Not only do I want to do well in dungeons, but I also want to smash it in a raid environment too. So I'll be learning the Oracle spec for Mythic Plus and Archon for raids. Both builds obviously taken from Wowhead, and don't expect these to change. I went and made a shopping list for consumables, and quickly learnt that this was going to be an expensive challenge on a new character. I'll only be using the budget stuff obviously. Rank 3s are completely out of the question. Holy moly. I wanted to grab some flasks, weapon oils, food, and various potions for different situations. Tempered for dungeons, mana for raids, and invis cause you never know, right? I didn't even look at the enchants. I left everything for now, and I didn't bother buying anything. I need to make some gold. I got work to do. So the first thing I decided to do to get a little bit of gear was the weeklies. Oh, and one thing I forgot to mention was the timing of this recording. I'm technically starting this challenge a day before World of Warcraft's 20th anniversary event. So that's a day before reset, which means I'll be kicking this challenge off with some decent weekly rewards and hopefully a decent vault. Another thing I forgot to consider is some of the rewards for being an alt. You see, once you reach a certain reputation with a faction in the War Within, you get given a bunch of rewards, which involves crests. I picked these up without thinking, and it all got mixed up with what I already had on the priest. So, although I said I'd be treating this like it was my only character, and no help from my warband, well, this really couldn't be helped. Stupid auto-hand-in add-ons. But let's be real, it's not really going to affect the challenge very much. Other than speeding up the initial gearing process, it just means we'll hopefully be jumping into Mythic Plus a little sooner. So I went and killed the world boss, and I got a champion ring with high mastery and crit. So that was a good start. I killed all the rares for that weekly, and I collected enough random gear which made me eligible for both heroic dungeons and looking for raid. I cleared all of LFR and got absolutely nothing. Raid healing was different though. I couldn't place raid frames anywhere that felt comfortable. I feel like I need to completely rip out the UI and create a new one. I realized whilst witnessing all of the typical LFR shenanigans that as a priest, I can manipulate the outcome of certain mechanics by gripping players into the correct position. I waited patiently for the right moment, and finally it happened. Though I'm not quite sure I made a huge difference. I'm sure I can do better in the future. The weekly I was excited for the most was the one that required completing 4 heroic or mythic dungeons. Of course, I did this on heroic. It didn't start well when I noticed my UI was out of place yet again. Thankfully, I managed to change this just as we pulled the first boss. This was the first time healing dungeons on the priest, and I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little nervous. It started off a little shaky when I realised I goofed on the dispelling. Luckily, this was only heroic. It would be a whole different story on mythic. We smashed through these dungeons, and you know what? I was already enjoying my time on the priest. The playstyle is pretty simple to pick up, though I'm sure some may dislike it. Weaving between heal and flash heal was interesting. Making sure Prayer of Mending was on cooldown. Yeah, I kept forgetting to use that ability, let alone placing it on the correct target to maximize stacks, but we'll no doubt cover that another time. The toolkit's actually quite nice, though it's lacking a couple of things that concern me as I jump into Mythic Plus and push further up the key level. It really doesn't have much in terms of AoE healing, other than Holy Word Serenity, but that only has 2 charges, unlike a Resto Shaman that can just spam chain heal. I'm yet to come up against the last boss in Arakara, the Harvester, with no poison dispel. That encounter's gonna be fun. But by far the best thing about being a priest is of course Leap of Faith. Using my in-game knowledge, being aware of incoming mechanics, and knowing where best to position, having the ability to grip someone to a different location to make a difference feels absolutely amazing. When you pull it off anyway. I'm sure we'll see plenty of these. But if you're not a fan of being yoinked around and it's not always used for good, don't forget you can always pick up a neural silencer to prevent these annoyances. And yes, just in case you were wondering, these also work for Evoker's Rescue. I wish I picked these up last season. I finally got time to finish these dungeons, I handed everything in, and I found a nice comfy spot to open all of the caches. Man, I love opening a bunch of caches all in one go. I wasn't sure what I'd get from the majority, but I knew I'd get some gear from a few of them. I picked up a lovely veteran waist with haste and verse. It came with some speed too. I got a veteran Vile trinket, which didn't look very appealing, but it was a passive trinket with a bunch of intellect, so... And the last item I looted was a hero ring with high mastery and haste. Not entirely ideal for Mythic Plus, but incredibly good for raid. All of this took our total item level up to 568, though I did bump it up by 1 just after by slightly upgrading a few bits. I was very close to buying a weapon as it was the biggest upgrade, but decided not to at the last second. And what a decision that turned out to be, because I decided to do one last dungeon before bed, and look what I got. That's right, a 580 staff that took our total item level up to 576. That was a bit of a jump. Before we get into our first proper reset on the Priest, I'd like to remind you all that I do stream on both Twitch and YouTube, where I'll be playing the Priest when this challenge is over. So if you want to come and join me for some Mythic Plus, swing by when I'm live. We also run a weekly community raid where you can join us on Discord, and that's a great opportunity to come and chat with me. No prior experience required for any of these, everyone's welcome. Alright, the first proper reset on the Priest, and the way I like to do things is to get as much done before opening the vault to maximise my chances of gear. When it comes to the vault, you get a number of items to choose from, whereas I can't choose what I might win from LFR or open from one of the caches. And if I choose something from the vault and get the same or better from one of the caches, I'd be pretty disappointed. So I jumped into LFR, and the first wing I entered, I noticed a name that looked rather familiar. Oh no, not only was this a loot goblin, my guild, but this was Ash, a friend outside of the game. Am I going to get found out before this series even goes live? I won't lie, I was tempted to troll him a little, grip him into something, stand next to him and fart a few times, but that'd be way too obvious, and I didn't want to blow my cover, so I stayed away as much as possible, and I think it worked. We'll find out when this goes live, I guess. Ha, look, typical Ash, enjoying the floor and letting everyone else do the work. I expect nothing less. Love you, Ash. Anyways, we smashed through all 3 wings, and I actually got a decent amount of loot this time. I picked up a 2-handed staff with high mastery and haste, a chest with high mastery and crit, some shoulders with high crit and mastery, and between queuing for the wings, I received a champion ring with high crit and haste from the world boss. Wait, am I now 2 for 2 for world bosses? What is this luck? It only bumped us up to 578 item level, but we still have so much content to go through. Not a bad start to the day, I guess. Next, I decided to check out the anniversary event and see what it had to offer. Was it worth doing for gearing? As it turns out, yes. I completed the incredibly underwhelming Codex event, opened both of the caches and got a Warbound Veteran neck with high crit and mastery, and some champion boots with crit and verse. So I decided to do more event stuff. I killed the 3 world bosses and received a Veteran Bottled Magma Trinket. No idea if this is any good. I did the classic time walk-ins for that weekly, and it was like no one had ever been to these places before. Such a shame. It just goes to show how Blizzard's done such a poor job when it comes to recycling the old content. But hopefully that changes with this event. Oh yeah, I got a veteran mace for doing that one. I did the last wing of the Blackrock Depths raid, same deal as the old dungeons. However, they actually changed the mechanics and it completely threw me. I wasn't prepared for this mess and I goofed on most of it. Now it was me not knowing what was going on. Though to be fair, I think no one did in this case. We still managed to finish it, and you want to know what I got from this weekly? The same damn mace. At least this one was champion, but still, come on man. I cleared the rest of LFR and picked up another neck with high verse and crit, and a champion chest with crit and mastery. I now sat at 582 item level and started preparing for Mythic Plus. I looked at my gear and checked to see what crests and valor stones I'd acquired, and I realised I was actually capped on stones. So I decided to go and spend them all. Whilst doing so, I realised I actually had veteran shoulders and a veteran chest. And because of what week we're in, I have 4 charges of the catalyst. This means I could already get my hands on the 2 set. So I did both those things, and I now sat at 590 item level. I picked up some super cheap enchants, really nothing special. I picked up some Dragonflight weapon runes and files because they were super cheap, and you'll see why soon. I bought some Rocky Road from the innkeeper, just in case I ran out of mana, and it was time. Filled with anxiety, I started looking through the list of keys. I made sure to start at the bottom and filtered by +2s. I did also avoid the higher rated players to begin with too, because I don't just want an easy ride to KSM. I want to earn it. Oh, and you remember I mentioned at the beginning about hiding from friends? Well, apparently, when you show us offline, friends can still see you in quick join whenever you're queuing for something. At least in my case anyway. So I chose to sign to keys that only required a healer. That way, I wouldn't be seen at all. I know, big brain, right? But until this point, I may have actually been seen by someone. Who knows? We'll find out soon enough. I saw a group with a blood DK, and healing those are never good for someone's heart. But the fact that they had a rep paladin, well, I mean, as I main one myself, I thought there could potentially be some off healing and clutch word of glories. You know, just in case I need it. It was the only key I signed to, and I got invited instantly. Oh, and spoiler alert, the paladin only cast 2 word of glories for the entire dungeon. But maybe they didn't have to. Let's find out. I wanted to be brutally honest and somewhat experiment when I joined the party. So I said, go easy on me. This is my first key healing. I was expecting the boot at this point, but it never actually happened. Not a single word was said. We got to the dungeon, the ready check came, and I started applying a weapon rune and a file. But do you remember when I said that these were super cheap? Well, yeah. That's because you can no longer use weapon runes from Dragonflight on gear from the War Within. Nice one, Blizz. Thanks. Alright, we got off to a bit of a shaky start, as I didn't know what to expect. I'd also been using raid spec quite a bit prior to this, so I got confused by a few spells. One good thing about this group, however, was the fact that this was full melee. Well, apart from me, of course. However, I am a melee main, and it's mostly what I've been playing for many years, so breaking that habit will be hard. But I think in this case, standing with melee was probably the play. The tank asked about the pacing just before the first boss, which I thought was really nice. I derped a couple of times, but no one had died yet. Keyword, yet. The first boss was messier than it should have been, especially for a +2. He had stayed alive for way too long and positioning was awful. There were webs everywhere. I'm obviously at fault for this too. I was getting so overwhelmed by the combination of movement and healing, and of course not messing up, that I totally forgot about my cooldowns. This will be like a trend for the video. You'll see me sitting on these quite often, but that's not something I'll be focusing on to begin with, for the most part anyway. I need to get comfortable with the rest of the toolkit first. I only started looking at overall damage for PI targets and timing it with cooldowns on the second boss. Though I really don't know when best to use each cooldown just yet. I'm talking about cooldowns again already? I was quite proud of myself for the second boss. Movement was on point for both charges, dropping the swarm debuff in the correct location, and I kept everyone alive. I even dealt some damage. Though I brain farted a little bit after the second boss by stepping into goo and I got rooted. Twice, by the way, don't ask. There were some scary moments making our way to the last boss, lots of stuff on the ground and many enjoying it. I certainly weren't, but we managed to get to the last boss with 0 deaths so far. This felt great, but I knew things could change with this encounter, and I kinda wish I put more effort into this fight before coming here. I didn't really know what I was gonna do with all the poisons, and as I can't dispel them and I'm not a dwarf, I'll just have to spam heal, pray no one gets hit by them when they expire, and hope for the best. So I positioned myself as best I could, the damage came out, and I knew this could get very tricky. I was also worried as a full group of melee that we'd have very little puddles, so I felt like this was also on me. I don't think I did a great job with these either. I had a few for myself, but I didn't see what everyone else had for cover. I became overwhelmed with healing when I was targeted by bloods, and also had to move from the swirlies. I tried positioning myself for the next pull, dealing as best I could. Sadly, we lost the druid to the pull mechanic. Death number 1. Now I had an army of bloods on me and I started panicking. I panicked even more when poison came out and the DK dropped very low. Man, these guys scared the poop out of me. The druid got picked back up, then we nearly lost the rogue to another pull mechanic. I'm just gonna assume that was a cheat death. Props to the paladin for that pull, by the way. They ran past the puddle I was next to, realised I was standing there and left it for me. Love that, good job. Though they did something hilarious straight after, as they dispelled themselves and the poor druid ran straight through it. Death number 2. And I still don't know if they were AFK or something, but when the next poison went out, the paladin just stood there and took it to the face. I got a good laugh out of that one. And there we have it, our first Mythic Plus dungeon on the Priest. We +2'd this one and gained a whopping 177 score. Overall, pretty pleased with my performance. Not having a poison dispel really sucks, and I feel like we could really do with something to help with AoE healing. 3 deaths overall that were somewhat out of my hands, though I guess I could have gripped the paladin at the end and probably placed more blobs on the ground. There's always room for improvement. That was rather enjoyable, a very good start to the challenge. I wanted my next key to be something on the easier side compared to some of the other places I could choose, and that key was a Siege of Boralus. I saw a group with double hunter and I just couldn't resist. I gave myself an easier time for this one with a prot warrior, Ellie shaman, and a survival and marksman hunter. All players between 590 and 600 item level. This run started off pretty well, more confident after the first key, just knowing that I could actually finish them at this level. There's not too much to cover until we get to the first boss. Luckily for me, I wasn't fixated by the boss, so I didn't have to deal with that mechanic. However, I did step on one of the bombs. Oopsie. But then, this happened. At first, I thought a bomb spawned on us, but no. The shaman did a dilly. Silly shaman. We took this guy down, but I needed to rinse myself off after that fight. It can get pretty filthy at times. The second boss went down really well. Not much I can really say about this encounter, to be honest. It was pretty smooth, just like my movement after the second boss. Then the awkwardness of not knowing which bloody buff the guardian spirit is.
Nope.
I got there eventually. Trash was going fine moving up to the third boss, until it wasn't. We either pulled a little too much or Pax went injured. The fear certainly didn't help, that was quite intensive. Nothing to say for the third boss, this guy went down absolutely fine. I can't quite say the same for the last boss though, oh boy. Just watch the tank at the beginning. Huh? He charged in, turned around, paused for a second, then leapt to the other tentacle. Okay. And let me tell you, dispelling players with these swirlies on the floor were no joke. I was not prepared for that. I noticed the shaman taking the cannon, so I wanted to position myself to cover everyone for healing. That way I could be helpful and grip the shaman back into the rest of the group. It worked well for this platform, but not so much the next one, as I wasn't expecting most players to stay behind. I should have just moved on, so I won't sit here and blame the hunter for nearly yeeting me to my death. That's on me. But the tank's up to their old tricks again with the tentacles, pulling the first one, then turning and charging to the back one. The front tentacle then turned to one of the hunters, and they got absolutely bonked. Yeah, I wasn't going to prevent that. In fact, looking back at the footage, they actually did this on the second platform too. Just randomly like, nah, I'm done with this guy. They eventually returned, and we finished off the fight. We +2'd this key, gaining 178 score and taking our total rating to 355. We also looted a champion helm with a socket, a huge upgrade from the 548 head we were currently using. Of course, I made sure this was gemmed, and that took our total item level up to 593. The next key I signed for was a City of Threads +2, which is the key level I'll obviously be sticking with this week. Same sort of group, low rating, item levels varied from 560 to roughly 600. We had a prop warrior, frost mage, unholy DK, and a windwalker monk. I knew going into this that the unholy DK would benefit massively from PI, if I was any good at actually using it, which I wasn't, especially in this run. No ready check for this one, I guess we're just going. There was so much damage going out from the get-go. I thought perhaps a bit too much for a +2, but they are technically what we used to consider 11s. Oh, I just realised I forgot to mention the affix that we'd be dealing with this week. Whoops. Well, it's only one, and this week we've got Ascendant. Basically, up to 10 orbs rain down and start casting an ability. If this ability goes off, nearby enemies gain haste and movement speed, which stack with each ability. But if we stop these casts, nearby players gain these buffs instead. Pretty simple, for some specs anyway. Trash leading up to the first boss and the first boss itself have an ability that places an orb debuff on a number of targets. Once this expires or gets dispelled, those orbs then fire out from the target it's on. See, what I was gonna do is try and ping the target to let them know that I was about to dispel them so everyone else could move away, but it didn't quite work out like that. So in the end, I just decided to let them expire. Perhaps next time I come here, I'll communicate better and let them know at the beginning of the key. Positioning for the first boss was pretty poor. Starting the fight right in the middle of the room is never ideal, unless you're going to absolutely blast, and I had no idea if that was going to be the case. Not to mention that the tank kept randomly moving the boss. Don't do that. No idea if this was intentional either, but the mage stood on me with the orbs and dispelled themselves, which stunned me and could have ended in death. A bit strange to say the least. But we did kill this guy and we moved on. Nothing to really cover for the next part other than the buggy NPC that always jumps location. I doubt this will ever get fixed. Still funny though. I knew it was coming. But I was rather proud of myself for the next part, the second boss. One thing I rarely see groups taking advantage of is the baiting of the charge ability into the walls. So I pinged the location and told the group. How this works is the bosses pick 2 random target locations and charge to them after a couple of seconds. These are massive blue lines, kinda hard to miss, and you can move away from that location. It's not fixed on a player. That said, however, if their path is blocked, in this case by going through a wall, they can't reach their target location and it does nothing. This also limits the amount these guys jump around, maximizing damage uptime, which can be really annoying on this fight, especially for melee. I should know. And although there's no way of knowing who these lines are going to target, I just want to share what happened next. The lines were incoming, the group's mostly on one side and close to a wall. I pinged to bait the lines. I noticed the mage way out in the middle of the room. We get really lucky with 2 of the lines, but I take no chances and grip the mage in.
Wow.
It probably made no difference, but I'm proud of that moment right there. Go me. Now, the trash after the second boss was absolutely fine, though I can't say the same about the big guy at the top of the stairs. Poison I can't dispel, so much of it on the floor, and everyone standing in it certainly didn't help. Yikes. The next part made me realise something though. Not only did some of the healing take me by surprise, and I really wasn't ready for it, but failing to heal players because they run downstairs or behind walls, I didn't anticipate that one. I also forgot that the boss spawns in the middle of the room after the small ads die. And where was I standing? Yeah, good job, Dilly. Good job. The monk somehow made it back to us, but the fight was a complete mess. I got overwhelmed with movement and healing. I barely dealt with any of the soaking, and the soaking that was being dealt with really limited the available space. Ideally, you want to circle around the edges of the room, soaking in one area as you rotate round, though to be totally honest, I spent most of this fight staring at the party frames and my weak auras. Camera angles were a bit dodgy at times, but we managed to take this guy down with no further deaths. The last boss was another messy one, but I think you guessed that already, right? Now, I wasn't actually sure if I could deal with the roots as a priest. Actually, I still have no idea. So if I can, and I'm being a goof, let me know in the comments below. This was quite brutal for healing. Lots of damage going out, and thankfully, I was able to output a decent amount. Though AoE is pretty scary for Holy in a Mythic Plus environment, and I didn't prepare very well for any of this. I tried being helpful when dodging the orbs, and I gripped the mage. Though sadly, another orb came their way, and they didn't bother moving. We lost the monk, though they shouldn't really be standing in that, should they? Everyone else dropped low, but I was able to keep everyone else alive. The monk got picked back up, the rest of the boss went just fine, though we nearly lost them again at the end, as they didn't dodge one of the orbs. Then we had to go and take down the last bit of trash to finish this place. We +2'd this key, gaining 177 score, and this took our total rating up to 532. We also picked up a champion ring with high verse and haste, the same ring I was currently wearing on the adventurer track. So a very nice upgrade. Much to improve on after that. I noticed many things I could have done better, but I still thoroughly enjoyed it. The Holy Priest is already starting to feel like the healer I've wanted for a very long time. I signed up to a Dawnbreaker and got instantly invited. That means I've signed to exactly 4 keys and got invited to all of them. The life of a healer. Another prop warrior for this one, along with a Frost DK, BM Hunter, and Balanced Druid. Same sort of item levels as before. The pack on the boat took me by surprise. I wasn't expecting so much damage. I was not prepared. Yeah, I wasn't prepared for most of the healing, to be honest, but that's to be expected as a new healer. Though I'm thinking about building a simplified cheat sheet for these dungeons for AoE and cleave situations, because I feel like as a Holy Priest, that's probably what's going to catch you off guard the most. I thought I was going to die on the first boss when I was late to mountain. I was panicking trying to make sure everyone was topped off. Dispelling was another thing that took me by surprise. I didn't realise it caused so much damage to the rest of the party after you removed it. Or am I just doing this incorrectly? I have no idea. The second pack after the first boss though, oh boy, the silly chicken went for a wander and came back with some friends. I quite enjoyed the challenge, but sometimes it's too much, and that certainly was. I didn't die though, so nah. Good call by the tank to take these round the corner, by the way, because they weren't being interrupted and were causing so much pain. Shortly after that, I had another rough moment where stairs caused a lot of annoying LOS shenanigans, not to mention all of the stuff on the ground. Holy moly. The second boss went just fine, though there was a hairy moment near the end when everyone took an absurd amount of damage. I knew that one was coming, but not quite to that scale. Then we move on to the last boss. I thought there'd be another moment of magic and I could grip someone into the correct position, but this one was weird. So, we got through the first phase of this fight, then moved on to Rashanan, and I'm just going to pause it here as the first wave comes out. So, as you can see, the hunter is way off to the left, right? No, not left, right. I'm asking you to agree with me. And you can see the wave is currently on the DK. Well, if I play this really slowly, keep track of the DK and where my mouse is. How the frizzle dizzle did I grip the stupid DK? How? I stunned the entire group, and the hunters just chilling over there laughing their ass off. Unbelievable, Jeff. I will just say though, LFUI has been a bit dodgy lately with the new patch and these updates, so who knows, man. Sadly, as we progress, it looks like we let a couple of the bombs go off and we lose the druid. That was a bit too much for me to handle. Let fly! Sorry, that's probably too soon. Anyways, we do in fact +3 this key, gaining a whopping 180 score and taking our total rating up to 712. All that score for 4 dungeons? Damn. But that's not all we get. Check this out. Oh baby, that's right, we loot the Empowered Crystal, which is apparently really good for Holy Priest, according to Wowhead anyway. I honestly have no idea. I chuck on the trinket in place of the Vile Vial of Blah, taking our total item level up to 595. Well, pretty much anyway. Oh man, I'm having an absolute blast on the priest so far. I'm really enjoying it. But before you all disappear, I thought we'd do something a little different to spice up the challenge. So join me as I introduce the new segment of pure Dilly Genius, Grip of the Week. And to kick things off, we have a few contenders. Our first one in LFR was pretty special. This was when I first realized our potential as a priest. However, that was completely outshined by the blunder in the Dawnbreaker. Here is where we accidentally gripped the DK instead of the hunter, sabotaging the group, and could have ended very badly. But I think I'll take the win on this one, and grip of the week goes to the one in City of Threads. We gripped the mage for the blade mechanic and made sure it was baited towards the wall. Clear winner in my eyes, no competition. Disagree? Let me know in the comments below.
Remember, my name is Dillisan.